Shall we look then
Yes.
at the post office? Of course, it's on the front page of most of the papers.
Every paper.
Emma, on the Mail, the headline is "The £75,000 deal sparks a new battle with post office victims." This is a very big leap forward. Of course, there's going to be sort of many degrees of sort of layers of complexity, but what's this debate about?
Yeah, I mean, this is... OK, so Sunak has announced this legislation that will overturn the wrongful convictions of over 900 of the postmasters. But lots of them are still going to face very lengthy waits for compensation. This sort of initial offer of 75,000 for many of them doesn't go far enough. They lost their lives, they lost their livelihoods, some of them went to prison. Some of them paid legal costs of over £300,000. There's one man in the Daily Mail story, which is very moving. He talks about the stigma and the shame. He became a recluse. We know about people's marriages, people's mental health being affected. And people were declared bankrupt, some cashed in their pensions. So financially, emotionally, mentally, just in terms of their life.
Completely agree. There was a guy on Monday, bless him, I can't remember his name, and he said, it just really resonated. He said, so they said we owed, do you remember this, 22 grand? Yeah. So my parents and I raided our savings, paid it back although we knew we were innocent. Wait for it. And the minute we paid it back, the post office went, you're guilty.
Yeah.
And prosecuted. And on the front of the Telegraph, I know we're concentrating, but this is a subject, James. Post office handed out bonuses for people to convict innocent people. So you know what, Bloodworth? Go today and get me a couple, I pay you 500 quid a time. It's appalling, man. This should end, should it not, in prison sentences. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's remarkable that in 2019, the government of the day gave CBE, I think it was, to the person the lady who was head of the post office.
All services to the post office.
Yeah, and
exactly.
It was 20...
It wasn't a general...
This has been going on for almost 20 years now. And
I think it's really important.
2019.
We're not going to have an argument, but I think it's really important to say, and I know you'll agree with me, this is not any political party. Sir Ed Davey, they're saying he should have his knighthood rescinded because he, of course, was the post office minister. This started with May and Cameron. This is steep.
Yeah,
it was the little people. It was people running our
against
post offices
the massive,
up and down the country. People, the fabric of the community, villages and towns. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't glamorous. People were writing about this. There were some headlines in the Sun, sort of way back in 2011, 2012. But really, it never hit the headlines like this. And it's just funny and sad and weird that it takes an ITV drama.
Well, maybe that's a benefit.
Election year. And I think because it's an election year. So we're hearing all the time now that this is, the greatest miscarriage of justice in British history. Yet it's been going on almost 20 years and there's hardly anything been done about it until there's an ITV drama and it's an election year.
In part, it took so long because no one saw lots to gain from taking this down, apart from the postmasters. Had it been sort of a slam dunk that it was under one party or there was one specific person involved and someone else could gain something by saying, I'm going to pin all the blame on you and hunt you down, it would have been easier, but there were too many people involved.
It sounds like a cover-up by the establishment against the little person,
and across the papers, there are stories, so many stories. IT experts 20 years ago saying, this is not fit for purpose. This system doesn't work, the Horizon system. So it's not as though people didn't know.
It's too much faith in technology and not enough faith in the ordinary person, almost.
And too many people covering their backs on top of each other, and then you get to this situation. Well, we've been asking people, Emma, is this enough at this point, the compensation to have your name cleared? Do you think it's like finally for them it's justice?
How do you get back those years if your marriage fell apart, if you sold your dream home, if you cashed in your pension? So, yeah, I mean, some of the figures seem very high. Some of them seem, £500,000, 75,000 if you only paid out 3,000. But you can't get those years back. You can't get what you went through.
People will say, oh, well, you haven't been in there. I don't think it's about the money right now. No. We've had this huge debate yesterday, James, on exoneration. And, of course, you know what I'm like. Yes, everybody should be exonerated straight away. We find out overnight that, of course, some of them want... Because I don't think you want to be dragged through the Court of Appeal after years and years of trauma, but actually we're being told that some do want their day in court. They don't want this sort of general sweeping thing. And then, of course, as Rosie said earlier, there might well be within the 700 one or two who are guilty. And, of course, then the difference between a democratically elected government and a legal system, it's a big, big problem.
Yeah, it is. I think it's about, what kind of personality type you are in some ways. Some people do want their day in court. Other people have locked themselves away because they felt publicly shamed by what happened and they just want to be exonerated so they can go out and hold their head high again. But I think, no amount of money can bring back bring some of these people, give them their lives back because they will be exonerated, but they've lost years of their lives feeling publicly shamed because they've had this this sense of guilt attached to them for something they didn't do.
Yeah, and being publicly shamed, shunned by their communities.